Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /entitled people, where people truly think it's all about them and who cares about others. And in today's episode, you'll be shaking your heads so hard, guys. We've got grocery store Karens, singing Karens, horrible teachers, nightmare neighbors, and one OP tells a story about the time their neglectful parents learned a lesson they won't forget. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I used to work in a grocery store near my house, and I still shop there every once in a while. Around Thanksgiving, one of the aisles gets turned into a kosher for Hanukkah aisle. Early December this year, I see one of my friends shopping in this aisle. Now, I know for a fact he's Jewish. He and I talked for a while, and I left him with Happy Hanukkah. Well, a lady who was standing a few feet away from us, looking at a jar of pickles, quickly corrects me from the end of the aisle, and she says, "You should have said Merry Christmas." I'm sick and tired of people saying Happy Holidays and all of that BS. It's Merry Christmas. I, of course, ignored her and went to stand in line at the deli, where I had worked before and still knew some employees. The woman decided to press the issue, and at one point, she even smacked me on the shoulder for continuing to look down at my phone while she was accosting me. Now, I don't remember the entire conversation, but she eventually demanded to see a manager. Fortunately, one was nearby. He walked up and he greeted me first, and suffice to say, the lady in question got a good talking to about how not everyone has to say Merry Christmas and it's okay to say something else. He also added if she accosted any customer or employee again over how they talk to people of these faiths, she would be banned from the store for the remainder of the holiday season. That's when she told him that she was going to speak to his higher-ups and have something done about this, because the leadership in this store is pathetic. At that, he just laughed and he told her good luck and walked off. Yeah, leave it up to a Karen to ruin the whole mood, guys, when two people are just wishing each other a good day. And the fact that she took it that far and she wanted to talk to corporate about it to have the manager reprimanded is ridiculous, isn't it? Like, just mind your own business, lady, and buy your pickles, is what I say. And this person comments, "I don't get people like this witch. If somebody wishes me a happy holidays, I'll say Merry Christmas because that's what I celebrate. On the off chance they say Happy Hanukkah, I'll say the same, or Merry Christmas if I have a brain fart. If someone wishes me good tidings of some sort, I'll do the same. Not get offended that they were the wrong good tidings. People like this are so pathetic that they have to go out of their way to find something to offend them." Yeah, I agree 100% with this person. It's called being nice. Some people should try it sometime. And while we're on the topic of ridiculous things that come out of people's mouths, guys, listen to this next post. Here's some background information. I'm child-free by choice, and I've made that known to people in my life since forever. My extended family are the type of people who think that not having kids because you don't want kids is not a valid reason. Now, I bring this up because every single time I see my extended family, especially around the holidays, they ask me about having kids. I've always told them that I'll never have kids because I don't want them. Over the years, I've also added that along with not wanting kids, I also have multiple medical conditions, which is true, that make me infertile. I was hoping knowing this would make them stop bringing it up, but they keep asking every single time I see them. That said, on to the current situation. I got engaged a couple of months ago, and with Christmas season around and us seeing more family, the talk about getting pregnant and having kids has been constant. Last weekend, we had a small dinner with both my and my fiance's families, so they could get to know each other a little better, and as a casual engagement celebration. During dinner, my aunt comes over and she put me on the spot and she loudly starts asking us about having kids. She's asking if we're trying yet, and she even went as far as saying that we should start trying to get pregnant now because it might take a long time because of my medical issues. She then started to go in depth about them, and she said that in front of everyone, and I could see jaws drop. When she said this, I lost it, and I screamed at her to stop asking me about having kids. I told her she's been harassing me about having kids since I was a kid myself. And even after a decade, she refused to stop. She knows I'm never having kids. And on top of that, bringing up my medical issues in front of all these people, some she had never even met before, is a crappy thing to do. My aunt just stood there and she tried to defend herself, but she had no good excuse for her behavior and people just stared at her. She quickly left like 5 minutes after when she realized that everyone was judging her. Listen, pastoring somebody about something like that in private is already bad enough, but to call them out in front of friends, families, strangers, and bringing up personal medical issues, I'm honestly wondering how OP refrained from throwing something at her or just going ballistic. I'm just glad Aunt Karen got the reaction she didn't expect, and she realized she embarrassed herself and showed herself out the door. Like, people really need to stay in their lane and keep their mouths shut when they have nothing useful to say. In my opinion, well done, OP, and hopefully Aunt Karen learned a lesson, a much needed lesson. So I work at an arcade, and about 2/3 of our games give tickets, which you can then exchange for prizes. On a busy weekend, I was working the register, selling game tokens and ride tickets. On the other side of my station is the redemption area, and one of my coworkers, who we'll call Skylar, was working down there, getting people their prizes. Now, the customer Skylar was helping wanted a prize worth 4,000 tickets. And I want to note, we do have a pretty fair rounding policy regarding tickets and prizes. If you're going for a prize that size, we'll usually spot you the extra tickets if you're within 50 to 100 tickets of the prize. A lot of it also depends on how courteous the customer is. Well, this guy had a major attitude problem for starters. He's definitely not the kind of guy you'd want to be generous to. And not only that, he only had 1,200 tickets for a 4,000 ticket prize. My coworker Skylar was very calm the first dozen times he explained that the prize was out of the guy's ticket range and tried to suggest other options. But as the guy continued to raise his voice and behave in a very entitled manner, Skylar began getting frustrated. Finally, after about 15 minutes of this back and forth, Skylar just snapped and said, "Sir, I'm not giving you 2,800 tickets for free." And the guy went red in the face. He screams at Skylar and says, "You'd better give me that prize. We've been up here for hours playing and we've spent a lot of money. We're VIP members, you know, and you have to round us up." Skylar continued, still visibly irritated, saying, "Sir, if that's the prize you want, you can save your tickets for next time and continue to work towards it. I can't just give it to you when you don't even have half the tickets it costs." At this point, sensing this interaction was not about to end with the result he wanted, the guy pulls out his trump card. He says to Skylar, "You're gonna be sorry for this. I know your boss, and I'll have you know he's a good friend of mine." As soon as he said that, the tension and frustration in Skylar's body language evaporated. Skylar's lips curled upward into a gleeful grin, and he says, "Oh yeah? Well, I know my boss too." He then pauses for a moment, and then he said, "The owner of this place, he's my uncle." And hearing that, the dude just blanked. The guy went pale a little, and he just stared at Skylar for a moment, and Skylar goes on and says, "The owner, Greg, he's my uncle. You're his good friend? Well, let me go get him." Cue another pause. The guy frantically recalibrated, coming up with a whole new story and said, "Well, my coworker knows your uncle." Skylar says, "Really? What's your coworker's name?" Now, if you're gonna make up a fake coworker to threaten a 20-something into complying to your insane demands, please at least be creative and or believable. Don't be like this genius who, after 5 seconds of humming and hawing, gives the spectacular answer of Bob. My coworker Skylar barely suppressed a snicker. He just shouted, "Hey, Uncle Greg, get out here." Uncle Greg walks out from the back, met with a, "Do you know someone who's named Bob?" To which he quickly responds with, "Nope." I just hope the 4,000 ticket prize that the dude could have easily bought online that he didn't get in the end was worth becoming a legendary laughingstock at our store. My goodness, the amount of secondhand embarrassment I felt from reading this post. Like there was nothing that entitled man could have done that could have possibly saved his butt in that situation. And guys, I've said this so many times before, like if that's your ultimate trump card and you have to absolutely play the "I know the owner," you'd better make sure you actually do know the owner, because again, the only thing the dude could have done after this is just hightail it out of there. Just leave your things on the table and go. And if you guys thought that was embarrassing, oh boy, listen to this next post, guys, where OP gets super petty towards a Karen, and it's wild. So this happened many years ago when I was trying to break into the jazz scene as a singer in a new city I moved to. I had shared some recordings of mine with a super talented musician who lived there, and based on that, the guy invited me to come out to one of their shows and sit in on a few songs. It was a great opportunity for me to perform in front of an audience of jazz lovers and also to make music and connect with several really wonderful players. His guidelines were simple: just pick 3 jazz standards that I thought I would shine on, and he and his band would back me on whatever I chose. I spent the whole week considering which songs would demonstrate my skills and also carry the most emotional impact, and I practiced them every day. That Friday night, I took extra time to try to look good, but I was still super nervous and self-conscious when I got to the crowded club. I knew nobody in this town. In a stroke of luck, someone left a little 2-seat table just as the band began, and I snagged it. During the break after the first set, the band leader comes over to chat with me. He was a really nice guy and generous with his talents. He didn't need to let me sit in with his band. As a matter of fact, many people wouldn't have done it. I was really grateful to have met him, and I felt hopeful about the contacts I would make through him. But more importantly, I thought we might end up being friends. He told me that after the break, they would play a few songs, and then he would invite me up. He then went off to mingle with all the other people who wanted to talk to him. As soon as he got up, this woman slides into the seat that he just vacated. She was tall, beautiful, and she said she had heard that the band leader had invited me to sit in, that she was also a singer, and she wanted to welcome me to town. She said these exact words. She said, "We chick singers have to stick together." She said that with a beautiful smile, and I thought to myself, could this night get any better? Here I was, making another friend already. She then asked, "What songs are you going to sing?" We chat a bit, and I told her what I'd chosen and why. She was really charming. As the band took the stage, she excuses herself to go back to the group of friends she was there with. She flashes that beautiful smile again, and she told me with a wink that she was sure we'd see each other again real soon. The band finishes the first song of the second set, and that's when the band leader calls up the other woman I had just met. I thought it was odd that she hadn't mentioned that she was going to sing too, but I was glad that I would get a chance to hear her. I then sat there utterly shocked and dumbfounded as she proceeded to sing all 3 of the songs that I prepared. I looked over and I saw her friends looking back and forth between her and me, and they were laughing. I was so stunned, mainly because never in 1,000 years would it occur to me to do something so crappy to another person, let alone a fellow musician. Like, this Karen, and I can call her a Karen now, literally came over to me and she acted friendly to find out what songs I was singing so she could pull that stunt. Welcome to your new town, I thought. I was so hurt and humiliated, and at this point, she was singing the 3rd song directly to me, to the great amusement of her friends. The band leader knew that something was up, but he had no idea what, as I hadn't told him what songs I would do. At this point, my brain was racing, trying to come up with a way to deal with this situation, and that's when it hit me. As I listened, I realized she was pretty good, but she wasn't that good. She was a little formulaic and a bit unoriginal. This Karen was depending on her looks and presence and her tricks she had learned in her voice lessons. She was technique heavy and soul lacking. In other words, she was baffling them with BS, and I knew what I had to do. Her last song ended, and she left the stage to generous applause from the audience and cheers from her table of friends. That's when the band leader calls me up. I handed him my lead sheets and whispered to him, "Hey, she stole my songs. Please trust me on this. Let me do the same songs." Fortunately, he got it instantly, and he nods with a little smile. And let me tell you, I sang the living hell out of my 3 songs. I put every ounce of my training, but also my emotions into the songs. My angst, my fears, my longing, my loneliness, and my joy all into those songs. I wasn't even aware of the room, but for a moment between songs, when I glanced out, I could see Karen sitting there with her mouth hanging open and her friends now sitting still and silent. When I finished, the room exploded and I got a standing ovation. Someone in the crowd actually shouted out, "And that's how you do it." I honestly kind of felt bad for her, but I think she learned something that night. The band leader even came up to me later, and he told me that he had wanted to teach her a lesson in humility for a long time, and he thanked me for letting him be a part of it. I ended up living in that town for 5 years, and I became good friends with the band leader and many other musicians in town. I never got close with that other singer, but she never tried to pull something like that with me again. And I think she never tried it with anyone else either. I still think it was one of my best performances ever. Guys, I love this post so much. Like, what a piece of crap move that was. And I think we can all agree that Karen getting knocked down a few pegs and her plan totally backfiring was simply amazing. And about OP saying it was probably one of their best performances ever, I totally believe it. Like, nothing will give you the power to rise above and beyond like the overwhelming feeling of wanting to destroy your enemy, in this case, a nasty Karen. Well frickin' played, OP. So in grade school, I had this math teacher named Miss White, who was pretty strict. Our school honestly was very diverse, but she was very, as her name suggests, white. That said, I have a difficult name to say, as it's Hawaiian. My name is spelled K-A-U''I. It looks daunting, but it's just pronounced Ka'ui. It's honestly not very difficult in my opinion. Also, I wouldn't have minded if people called me Cowie, like how it's spelled. Anyways, Miss White stumbles on my name when she read attendance, so I did the usual, "Oh, it's pronounced so-and-so." And you know what she did? She literally went, yeah, no, I'm just gonna call you Catherine." And let me tell you, I was flabbergasted. Like, it was a private, very diverse school, and I've never had this happen. Teachers had horribly mispronounced my name before, but this was definitely new. And also, no offense to any Catherines, but I love my name, and I'm not a Catherine, so I didn't want to be called it. Honestly, I was so surprised that for the first 2 weeks, I kind of just let it happen. But at some point, it was irking me because she made no effort to learn how to say my name. I never told her she could call me Catherine, and on top of that, she never even asked me for a nickname or my middle name or something. So to get back at her, I start calling her by her first name, Jessica. She was the kind of teacher who no one called her by her first name. Even the other teachers called her Miss White. I had to look in the yearbook from the year before to find it, but from that day on, she was Jessica. And when that didn't make her mad enough, she was Jessie, or Jess, or JJ, or any other nicknames I could think of. Now, she never did yell at me or anything. She just corrected me, and she would say, "Excuse me, it's Miss White to you." I would just ignore it. She did call me Catherine the rest of the year, so it's not the most satisfying story. But I was happy with that revenge of calling her Jessica the rest of the year. Miss White apparently got fired 2 years later for microaggression towards students, and honestly, I'm not surprised. I just wanted to share this story because I figured y'all would enjoy it. Honestly, in my opinion, OP should have made up a totally different name and stuck with that. just like how Miss White did it. Like, "Hey Billy Bob, did you mark our tests yet?" Or, "Hey Billy Bob, do we have any homework this weekend?" No offense to Billy Bobs out there. But yeah, jokes aside, I think the best thing the teacher could have done is to try to pronounce OP's name, or just to talk to OP and figure out a solution, right? Because picking a totally random name is not cool, Miss White. And if any teachers are listening, please let us know in the comments how you deal with students who have difficult names to pronounce. So this was many years ago, back in the 90s, when I was around 11 years old or so I don't remember many details, but I do remember the outcome well. This was not too long after we moved to a new, hot, and sunny state. My parents found a hiking trail that they thought seemed fun. They also ignored the warning that it was long and intensive, not suitable for younger people. Also, back then, we didn't know I had this condition that causes heat intolerance, and it was peak summer. That said, the hike started pretty good. Back then, I did hike with my parents a lot, and I always loved doing it. The hike started off fine, but once it started to get bad, it was like a snowball. I remember feeling a little woozy, but as a little 11 or 12-year-old kid, I kind of thought it was funny. I did mention to my parents that I felt woozy, and they didn't think much of it because I'm a kid. They just gave me some water and snacks, and that's that. About halfway into the hike, the wooziness got way worse, like not so good. If you've ever experienced the beginning of heat exhaustion, you know what I mean. It was nothing too apparent yet, but I wasn't having as much fun. I just kept letting my parents know that I wasn't feeling good, but they didn't want to turn back, they just wanted to keep going to see the end. My parents were loving stopping at every cool site and taking photos, and at some point, I just stopped participating and I just stayed behind to eat some snacks. We were still in the wooded area of the hike, but this wouldn't last long. The last third of the hike starts with a steep, rocky uphill with little shade, and it would end off with a long, sunny, flat path. Starting the steep and long uphill, I started to feel really not good, and I told that to my parents. Again, my parents didn't believe me. They thought I was being overdramatic and lazy like they always said, and that I just wanted to be carried and just to tough it out or something. I also want to add that back then, my parents were kind of a-holes all around, and they said these things all the time to every illness or anything. But then, I start to feel really shaky, and my stomach hurt, and every single step felt like my limbs were made of lead. When my pace started to dramatically drop off, and every step took me a minute, my mom starts freaking out. She finally paused, and she started to consider that I was maybe not faking it. And I mean maybe. They basically thought I was just tired or something, and just to help me so I stopped complaining. They still didn't think anything was wrong, no matter how much I tried to tell them. They just assumed the steep uphill was a bit much for a child. My dad, however, still didn't believe me, and he went on ahead while my mom just stayed and tried to help me get to the end of the uphill. I'll admit, the last part I remember very little of. At this point, I don't even know how I made it to the top of the uphill, but my body was done. The next thing I do remember is throwing up a lot, again and again. It was at that moment that both of my parents were finally like, oh crap, something's wrong. They gave me some time to stay under a big bush, enough for my 11-year-old body to cool off before continuing the walk. They reassured me there's just a little bit more to go. A few steps later, I was down again. From there until the end of the hike, I remember very few things. I remember throwing up a lot, not being able to move or lift any of my limbs anymore, and being carried while I was barely conscious. A good handful of strangers poured their remaining bottles of water on me to try to cool me down. It was at least a dozen bottles given to me to try to drink or cool my body down. And finally, a helicopter came. I remember ambulances and 2 sheriff's cars showing up to take care of me. As it seemed, multiple people managed to call an emergency, so a lot of people showed up. So yeah, I end up having a really bad heat stroke. My sister claims to this day that I was overdramatic, but my parents never ever again doubted whenever I said I didn't feel well. I've never heard them tell me to tough it out since that day because I could have possibly died if dozens of strangers didn't help me with water and calling for help. They also always read warnings on hikes since then, but I've never joined them again and nobody tried to force me to after that. I'm just glad OP's parents learned to listen in the end, and seriously, I'm super duper glad that OP got out of there okay that day because heat stroke is no joke, especially for the young ones, and especially in the middle of a long hike. With that said, what is up with some parents not listening to their kids? Yeah, sometimes kids do it for attention or they over-exaggerate, but when you're on a hot hike, maybe listen to the kiddos. But yeah, what a mistake that was, and probably a costly one because I can't imagine a helicopter rescue ride being a cheap thing. And again, it just sucks that it took a super extreme event for OP's parents to start believing them. A little while ago, we moved into a nice little neighborhood with my husband and soon-to-be newborn. One night, my husband was walking our corgi puppy, and the neighbor across from us came outside. Now, I don't know what happened, but I guess the leash slips out of my husband's hand when our dog surprise bolted. The corgi puppy runs over to her, and the woman shrieks and runs inside. My husband comes out later without the puppy, and she cusses him out. She screams at him, and he tries to apologize, but she keeps screaming. A few days later, a humane officer comes to my door. It wakes my newborn up, and he tells me he'll give me a fine for allowing my dog to charge our neighbor if it happens again. I guess he was under the impression that this has happened more than one time. He said my neighbor was terrified for her safety. I just told him that I have a 7-pound corgi puppy, literally the least terrifying animal on earth. She also yells at our other neighbor who mows the vacant lot beside her anytime he gets too close to her grass, which gets pretty tall. They've gotten into screaming matches, and she's even called the cops on him 9 times, never ending in her favor. After that, I decided I wanted to get back at her. I found this online website that anonymously sends people glitter bomb holiday cards. So when you open it, it shoots glitter everywhere. So I bought one, and a month goes by, and I was wondering if this scam website just took my money, or if she wasn't gonna say anything about it. And I kid you not, one day, this cop comes to my door. He asks to come inside, and then he bursts out laughing, explaining that he's here over a glitter Christmas card. He then tells me that Karen suspects 100% that I did it. He said, whatever the case, that this is the funniest call he's ever ran, and then he leaves, and it's totally legal and great revenge. Edit. So we're cool now, and surprisingly, she even gifted me some edibles. At first, I was a bit suspicious that they were poisoned or something as revenge for the card, but they were fantastic, and we talk on a regular basis now. Turns out, she was just a bit socially anxious, and that's why she'd gotten into it with a lot of the neighbors, but she's actually a really nice person under the Karen exterior. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, reading this post, I did not expect that ending. It's not every day that you hear a psycho neighbor becoming friends with the person who they repeatedly called the cops on, and got glitter bombed by them. The glitter bomb card thing was amazing though. And about the savage corgi and how Karen was terrified for her life, maybe, just maybe she had one too many edibles that day. I'm just saying. And this person comments about OP's terrifying dog. They say, to be fair, I know how vicious corgis are. Mine becomes voracious when food's involved in any form, and will stop at nothing to get what she wants. And this person says, those wiggle butts are dangerous as heck, man. I've seen people walk into trees because they were checking out a corgi butt. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where OP obeys their nasty Karen boss so much that it backfires on her. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.